I'm going to show you a DMN app created using the platform that Denis just described that identifies the right time to buy a stock. Now, investing is based on one basic principle: buy low, sell high. And it's easy to say, but it's hard to do because when is the right time to buy a stock? Investors Business Daily, or IBD, every week publishes a list of leading stocks called the IBD 50 and a methodology that indicates the proper buy point of the stock based on patterns in the price chart. So when the stock price rises and then trends sideways or down for several weeks, this establishes a base. And the shape of the chart determines the base type, which determines the buy point. Now, investors are supposed to identify the base type by looking at the price chart, but the data is very noisy, so it's not easy. And actually, IBD's business is to sell you that information. And they say, naturally, as you'll understand, that it is done with artificial intelligence, but it's actually just rules applied to data, so I thought DMN could do it. So I conceived of these base types as basically a state chart, the bubbles representing the base types, and each daily bar in the price chart potentially representing a state transition, shown by the red arrows here. Now, it turns out that only local minima and maxima of the price are significant business events. So that business event plus the current state plus business rules give you the new state. So here's the DMN, the DRD, and most of it at the bottom is just smoothing out the noise in the data and extracting the min-max table, the local minima and maxima. At the top, the state table determines the state chart. So here you see at the left a bit of that min-max table overlaid on the price chart, a weekly price chart, as yellow triangles on the right. Each triangle triggers a transition to a new state or base type. The rules determining the base type are this decision table here. And that's really the guts of the program. The resulting state table gives the base type and the buy point for each row in the min-max table. So the buy signals, called breakouts, are when the price goes above the buy point, shown as these yellow lines in the overlay. Now, once the service was working, as you saw from Denis' presentation, deploying it as a REST service was just one click in the tools. And you can easily test and verify that the service is working. But it's a lot of work to do for just one stock. So to make it useful, you need to automate this for a list of stocks to get the price history, execute the decision service, and then save it so you can look at it. So I use Microsoft Flow for that. It's a simple service orchestration tool where each of these graphical widgets represents basically a connector API configured with a simple script language. So it's similar like BPMN. So to call this decision service from Flow, you need to make a custom connector. As Denis showed, you just click that Open API button, creates that file that you import into Flow, that creates the connector. So all you need to do is populate an Excel table with the list of leading stocks and click the button and go. And in the end, here you see the current state, which gives you the buy point, the previous breakout, the current state, et cetera, current price, information that an investor would want to see in order to see if they wanted to invest in that stock. So this example shows where DMN is going, maybe not the way you think of it now. Easily created decision services orchestrated with other microservices using low-code tools, open standards, accessible even to non-programmers like me. And all secrets are revealed here in this book, which Edson and I wrote, just published yesterday, really. that really shows how to create fairly complex decision logic if you're not a programmer, and I'm certainly not, using DMN, deploy it as a service, orchestrate it, and actually do something useful with it. So, okay, so here we have this decision service, this decision model, I should say. Here's the DRD. The input bar chart data is a year's worth of daily prices downloaded from barchart.com web service. And in this tool, you can use that to populate the input data. You can actually save it as Excel and upload it. Looks like this, not very interesting, but it's a lot of data. So it's, what's this, eight rows, eight columns times about 253 rows, so it's a lot of data. And this is quite noisy. So after we've put it in a standard format, we have to smooth it with exponential moving averages, extract the local minima and maxima here, clean that up, so make sure that they're strictly alternating minima and maxima here. And then the state table is this thing that has, no, it's not this, it's the BKM that builds the state table. That's got many, many rules here, 40-something rules, to go from different base types under certain conditions to other base types. Once we, and then the final, the top level here, the current state just is reporting of this information. Now it's not very interesting to look at the model. Maybe more interesting to actually look at the results. So when we run it, for Netflix, for example, this is from last Friday, so if you are an investor, Netflix reported yesterday and they did very well, so it's up about $25 higher than this today. But you can see here's the current price, what its relationship to its previous buy point. It's still in an uptrend and has no buy point. So when a stock breaks out in uptrend, it doesn't yet have a buy point. When we want to deploy this as a service, you just click Cloud Publish as Denise showed you. And all right, so you've seen that already. But as I said, getting a year's worth of data, saving it in Excel, uploading it here, that's fine for testing it, but it's not all that useful. So actually, if this is something you'd like to do every day, you need an orchestration tool. And so I used Microsoft Flow. I knew nothing about Microsoft Flow before I started this, but it's a very interesting product. I kind of wish, in some ways, BPMN tools were more like Microsoft Flow in this one way in which the product has, they call them connectors to lots of apps that expose their services, and you can configure them. Now, I created in, where is it, in OneDrive. Why am I not seeing this? Oh, okay. Use the right mouse button here. So I have three stocks here. It's I'm on a test instance and it's kind of slow. So in the interest of time, I just have three stocks here, and I save this in a Excel file. And now in Flow, I'm going to use the Excel adapter to point to, not this Excel file, but the one I just showed you, the one called 417, that's today. This is going to get the rows of that table, and then it's going to execute for each one. This is apply to each. It's sort of like a multi-instance. It's going to execute this price history service, the barchart.com, get a year's worth of daily prices, execute the decision service using the custom connector that I created by importing that Swagger file that showed you as one click. And then after I run that, return the result through the Excel connector back to that same Excel file using the row ID that I originally got and mapping these 4 outputs of the decision service back to the cells in Excel. All right, so now if the demo gods are with me, I need to save this. And test it. And so this runs in the Microsoft Cloud someplace. And hopefully in about a minute, oh, okay, good, started. So you can see getting the rows from Excel was fairly short, fairly fast. And so this is going to take about a minute, hopefully. It will come back, and we'll see, when it comes back, you see the results. And maybe while we're waiting, I'll just show you what, here's the Netflix price chart from today, and this green line shows the, stand over here. Here was a base that started here, and there was a breakout when it went above this base. And one of the rules of IBD, which makes this complicated, is that when the price then goes below the breakout, it resets back to the previous base. So this actually, what looks like a base, actually it's this point that went the closing price below the breakout resets the previous base. So instead of this actually being a base that would break out up here, it's considered just an uptrend from this previous breakout. So there's no buy point for this particular stock. All right. Now it looks like it came back. That's good. But instead of looking at it here, let's go back and look at it in Excel, which is easier to see the result. And, oh, you can see I needed to wrap the, why is this? There we go. So we can see for Netflix, there's no buy point. The current price, $336. It's in this uptrend from the breakout on April 4th. And the April 4th is the previous breakout. Well, April 4th. That's what this says. So it gives you the state, and if this would run a little faster, it's something you could do with the whole IBD 50 every day or every week to see which of your stocks are approaching a buy point that you should consider buying the next day. So how are we doing on time? I think we're doing well. I think the point I'd like to make, and maybe about the book too, is that a lot of people think DMN is just about creating decision requirements, because that's all business people could probably do. And so that's all most DMN tools let you do, with the idea that you're going to hand these models to a programmer who's going to then say, oh, okay, I see what you want, and then go into ODM or the old Drools DRL or, FICO, Blaze, and code the logic using some other language. But in fact, DMN itself can do all this. I don't know if you saw all this data smoothing, iteration, filtering, complex decision tables, recursion, to actually come up with the result within that language. None of it requires programming. I'm not a programmer, so I couldn't have done it if it did. But once you get that logic, you can test it in the tool. You can create a decision service in one click and then deploy it, orchestrate it with Flow or BPMN or some other tool, and actually do useful things with it. So you shouldn't think of DMN as a requirements language. It is the next generation decision execution language. It can create real-world decisions, production scalable. Using this, so the same language is used for modeling and for actually creating the service. Now, I don't expect that, Joe in accounting is going to be able to create models like this. They could maybe do the requirements. The success of DMN, I think, is going to be driven by programmers, maybe some citizen developers like me, combination. And they need to understand that there's an advantage in using feel, box expressions, the other features of DMN to create their production decision services instead of translating them into ODM or something else like that. So that's what this book is intended to do. So we're trying to actually jumpstart the understanding of DMN as a really first-class language for developers to create next-generation decision services. The important thing is that DMN is ideally suited to creating stateless services, which can be orchestrated easily by many tools, embedded in Java applications. So this idea of, well, I'm going to take my decision models and turn to this, seven-figure decision management system requiring that. It's a little outmoded, I think. That still has its place, but there's, I think, a larger potential market in taking decision logic, creating lightweight, stateless services that can be embedded in anything and called through REST APIs in the cloud or in your own on-premise. So it's a totally different way to think about decisions and greatly expands their capability. So thank you very much. Question, yes?
I have two questions. The first one I think everybody wants to ask is, did you make any money off the website? Yes, exactly. Are you selling it?
Well, actually I did, but not because of this. But I did sell puts on Netflix, and it went up, well, it looked like 30 points today, so that's pretty good. So, yeah.
My second question, though, is, you mentioned very, very briefly, if this was faster, then you could run this every day, et cetera. What did you feel is, what is contributing to the slowness?
So that's a good question. So I have three answers. One is I'm on a test instance of Trisatech, which they say is slow. Second is, from a performance standpoint, I know nothing. So after BPM Next, I'm going to work with Edson. We're going to figure out, okay, what parts of the code are taking the time, because it's really crunching a lot of data, and maybe I'm not doing it in the most efficient way. The third thing, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, but there's going to be further performance improvements from the Red Hat DMN engine when it's fully compiled. I'm not sure if that's the right term for it. This summer, so it will probably run 10 times faster than even if I leave my own coding mistakes in there.
Just as a follow-up, because of that point, with processing so much data and running that through DMN to process that data, how much of that is contributed to possibly DMN not having the capability to do some of the optimizations that you need to cut down that time? You said that you're going to be figuring it out. Are you thinking of sharing your findings?
Well, that's interesting. So, I mean, what I said is, as a non-programmer, I'm not really aware of what constructs are slow and what are fast and what are expensive. Edson is. He can help me with that. So I can maybe make the code better. The server is going to be more powerful, and the compilation is going to be more powerful. If there's useful learning to be gained from any of that, of course I'll be writing about it, because I think my mission now, having invested a lot in learning this and the book and everything, is to make developers aware of this is a serious first-class decision language. You should be using it, and so anything I can tell the world to popularize that and clarify that would be a good thing. So, and if any of you can contribute to that or help me with that, that's fine. Also, maybe as a sort of a comment to the room, I didn't start off looking for Microsoft Flow as an orchestration engine. I wanted to find a cloud-based BPMN engine that didn't require programming and had connectors to apps that I could use. And I looked around and I didn't find any. Now, hopefully one of you will come up after class or raise your hand now and say, I've got that, why don't you use my tool? And I'd say, oh, thank you, because Microsoft Flow is really great if you're an Office 365 shop. If you're not, it's basically a one-person workflow. So I am looking for an alternative orchestration platform. Other questions? Yes?
And so I noticed in the model or in the service, you're including a lot of the sort of data preparation, data smoothing, all of that. Are there any, I hate the term best practices, are there any good practices or guidelines on sort of where to draw that boundary between providing the data and...
So I have to say, one of the things that I did, which is, definitely probably bad, is it was simpler from a coding standpoint every day I run this to go back over an entire year's history. As opposed to the real thing is, I've got the run from yesterday. I'm going to get one day's new data. Now, it makes the DMN model a lot more complicated, but it would probably reduce the runtime by, order of magnitude. And that would be a best practice in real life.
I'm thinking we tried to do something similar for a pan-European credit scoring application in our bank. And there's lots of, the one country needed this set, another country needed that set.
So yeah, there's simplifying the DRD so it fits on a page in the book, or it makes a nice demo. It might not be the best coding practice. Other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.